All right, what's up, everybody? Detroit Lions News Podcast. I'm your host, Show Chap, with James and the host, James. James, we come on here. We had plans of doing, the positional breakdown, but obviously the Lions threw us a curveball, which was fun to watch, to be honest, because there was a lot of reaction to that. It was a lot of reaction to the hire, which some was warranted and some was really dumb. And then St. Brown said what he said, and I'm not going to say what I want to say, but he's not he's not wrong, but he ain't right. That's all I'm saying. and we're gonna go through a positional breakdown: quarterback, running back, wide receiver. It makes sense now because now that we know who the OC is, it makes perfect sense. And I think that when we get to the quarterback breakdown, obviously Jared Goff is gonna be like a very easy one to go through, like Jared Goff. What do you do at that backup position? Well, there might be a guy in Arizona who might be a good backup plan, and that is Jacoby Brissett. So you never know how it's going to go. But if you are uh, if you if you are new to the channel, you're watching on Facebook, go to our YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube. Let's get the subscribers up to 1,000. That'd be great, especially before we get to the draft, which we will. Here's the thing. James has thoughts. I have thoughts. We're gonna go through it. Obviously, the main dish right now is the hire of Drew Petzing. And I don't know why I didn't go through, but this was when they hired him. It was not Ian Rappaport that reported, but it was Adam Schefter that reported it. And I don't know, James. You could take it away because I think you have a good read on it. I have a good read on it. We'll go back and forth, and we'll figure out. As we go to the quarterback breakdown, the run back breakdown, wide receiver breakdown, how does it all fit? And then when people tune in next week, tight ends and offensive linemen, which is going to be a fascinating conversation because
I'm honestly looking forward more to that one than this one. I was like going through everything, and I was like, dang, like all my thoughts are like, oh crap, that's like tight end or offensive line. But this one's still there's a lot of interesting stuff with this one too. I mean,
I got some interesting stuff for sure.
You got the running. I mean, Brad Holmes's comments about David Montgomery. Then you have hiring Drew Petzing that seemingly might fit like David Montgomery's style, I think, to a T. I think that's honestly one of my main takeaways from the hire. I mean, I think that everyone's I'm on, doing whatever I'm doing, and then I bring up my X account or Twitter account, and it was like within a couple minutes of the news breaking that the Lions hired Drew Petzing. And I think the first thing I thought of was I think the reaction was almost entirely based off like they were we knew seemingly who everyone the Lions were interested in, and there was a lot of people. Like there were 7 names out there at the time. So the first bit of information we get on Drew Petzing being that the Lions hired him was I think that was kind of the big shock of it. And I think that framed a lot of early reactions, just in that we kind of thought we were like crossing all of our T's in terms of who was out there and who was being considered for the job. And then obviously you have, I think a lot of people wanted Mike McDaniel, who, I mean, I myself was on record as saying he was my first choice, which I think is kind of, as I've taken more looks into it, I think this whole conversation has just gotten more interesting, because I wonder what the reaction would have been if it would have been announced whenever Drew Petzing, because he interviewed for it and he had separate conversations with Jared Goff, and Dave Burkett reported that he talked to Jared Goff before they hired him. But we didn't know any of that. It was just, oh my gosh, they hired this guy who we had no clue was even in the mix for it. So I think that element to it is interesting. And then, as I just said with David Montgomery, I think a lot of the first player people want to point when they're talking about Drew Petzing is Trey McBride, who was incredible under Drew Petzing at tight end. But James Conner was a guy that he had 6 seasons in the NFL before Drew Petzing took over as offensive coordinator. And pretty much all of them, if you just look at the pure like main stats of it, it's like low 4, like 4.0 type yards per carry, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a tiny bit more, and then all in the kind of like 700 to 750 yards. And then 2023 and 2024, Drew Petzing's first 2 years, it's a career high 5.0 yards per carry. I think the next year was like 4.6, which is like his second best year. It's over 1,000 both years, where I think he had his second year in the NFL, he was around 200, but then all of his 5 years before that were all like 700s or less. So then he bumps up to in the thousands. So, and that's a running back that, they run a lot of gap scheme style running where it's kind of patient, like find the gap and attack it, which is kind of one of David, if not David Montgomery's strengths. So I just, I posted out the other day, and it's kind of crazy for me to talk a bunch about David Montgomery when Jahmyr Gibbs might be the best running back in the NFL. But just in the conversation of, this was a guy that, like, one of the main takeaways from Brad Holmes' press conference was, oh my gosh, like, look what he said about David Montgomery. I just, now that you hired this guy, and seemingly the big, strength of wanting to hire him was his run game design and his success with that, does it really make sense that we're going to now get rid of David Montgomery, who might fit this style to a T? So I think that element of it is going to be one of the more interesting things in the immediate future to follow. Is, next time we hear from Brad Holmes or whoever, which will probably be at the combine, what is the plan? Will they say David Montgomery's back and yep, we got our two running backs? Because that could even maybe shape this hire even more.
Yeah, the thing about Drew Petzing that I think is fascinating is, number one, I don't think he had a good team. And this goes to the Cardinal fans who were berating my mentions when I was said that they were a terrible team. And they were like, oh, you're a Lions fan. I speak from experience. Because when I watched that Arizona Cardinals team, and I went back and I watched 2 years of the Arizona Cardinals, and last year was brutal. And I don't care who you are, the last year was brutal.
I didn't honestly, it's crazy how injured that team was. Like, I thought it just shows kind of too how, like, in your own bubble you get, because like that team, you look at their injuries, it's like, oh my god, like, were they the most injured team in the NFL? Like, they might have been.
I mean, when you're relying on Zonovan Knight to be your starting running back, you have reached the pinnacle of absurdity. And I listened to a lot of Cardinals fans. They're like, you didn't watch. And I was like, all right, I'll go to all 22. I'll watch all the offensive snaps. And I got it done in less. I got two years worth of it. And then I got a third year worth of it, done today. But I go through it and I go, okay, the thing about the Cardinals is Kyler Murray is not the quarterback to be in this system. That's number one. Number one is Kyler Murray's not meant to be in that system. He is a quarterback who would be more meant for a Mike McDaniel type offense, the RPOs. Blah, 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 blah. Drew Petzing did the RPOs and they looked dysfunctional. If you go to Drew Petzing's coaching lineage and you go to when he was with Stefanski, okay? And if you would have told me Stefanski was the Lions hire, I would have said, sign me up. Like, sign me up today. Because I remember what he did with
I said he was my number two. It was McDaniel and Stefanski for me.
And we knew Stefanski was going to get a head coaching job, but Stefanski was my number one. Now, I like Mike McDaniel. There's no doubt about it. He's a good coach. But, when we posted a video, we were on record saying that we like Mike McDaniel. He would do good here. One of my buddies who is a big time Dolphins fan and I think one of his family members was on the Dolphins when they were winning all sorts of stuff. Actually, with Don Shula, and he was like, "No, you don't want Mike McDaniel." And I was like, no, I don't know, why do you see when you ask a fan base who just fired their coach, whether it's Mike McDaniel, Mike Kafka, or it's Zach Robinson in Atlanta. They never have anything good to say. There's usually nothing good that comes out of that conversation. You're usually
might get hired by the Packers potentially to be their defensive coordinator.
Yeah, Gannon would be good. I just think that
he would be, yeah.
When you think about the quarterback who they had, Kyler Murray, I don't think Kyler Murray is that good. I really don't. So you go, Kyler Murray's all right, right? You go, all right, what else? Like, what else? Kyler Murray's good.
How
Okay.
about this? Their GM in his first year, heading into his first season, in his first draft, went, no, I don't want Will Anderson. I'll trade that pick and let the Texans get him. And then, moments later, the Lions come calling and say, okay, yeah, we'll trade with you again, and we'll take, I think, Paris Johnson, who is a, pretty good offensive lineman. But then the Lions get Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of, that's
No,
catastrophic.
Jack Campbell.
Jack Campbell as well, but I think the Gibbs trade was they had Laporte. It was
Oh yeah, you're right.
I think.
Yep, you're right.
But just point being, like, they traded off of potentially getting Will Anderson, and then they doubled down and said, no, like, we're good on Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. We'll take Paris Johnson, who, Paris Johnson's all right, but that team is, I don't think that team is very good. And on top of it, they were unbelievably injured this year. I mean, they didn't have, I talked about the great numbers that James Conner had the previous 2 years. He missed double-digit games. Trey Benson, his backup, who they drafted, he missed double-digit games. They're down to, who we kind of know from the Lions a little bit, Bam Knight, and I'm blanking on the dude's name, but the guy that
Ricardo or whatever, Mercado.
Del Mercado, who dropped the ball at the 1 yard line, or else they would have won another game. And then their wide receiver crew, who, you can say, oh, he should have gotten more out of Marvin Harrison, who, I've seen him play a lot. He was dropping balls left and right.
When people were bringing it up to me, and one of the guys who came on my Twitter or X account or whatever the hell you call it, he came at me, and his tag name, instead of yours being Section 344, his was Maserati Marv, and I told him, I was like,
by the way, at a Section 344 Lions, you can berate me and do whatever you want, but appreciate that.
Yeah, and so yeah, great follow on that. we promoted stuff all the time on the page, and it was named Maserati Marv. Now, I don't consider Marvin Harrison Jr. a Maserati. I think he's more like a Toyota Prius at this point, because he's not reliable. And Michael Wilson, the guy they drafted in the 6th round, is probably outperforming him by a lot.
That was the point I was going to make. Like, if you're going to rag on Marvin Harrison, like, okay, no one knew who Michael Wilson was, and now he was an 1,000-yard receiver last year in this situation. Like, that's a positive to him.
If Marvin Harrison is getting outperformed by a 6th round pick or 5th round pick or wherever the hell Michael Wilson was.
Michael Wilson? I want to say like 4th round. Let's see.
I think maybe it was 4th or 5th.
Stanford.
I remember that.
3rd round, 94 overall.
Okay, 3rd round. But still, a 3rd round pick should not be outperforming a 1st round pick. It just shouldn't happen, especially when Marvin Harrison Jr. came into the league and he was anointed as this generational prospect. It just shouldn't happen that way. And the drops that he had were ridiculous. But the thing I go back to, and I still just say this about the Cardinals, the roster is terrible. The defense has more pieces than the offense, and I think Trey McBride is one of the best tight ends in football. No one's doubting that. Okay,
which that's another positive to Petzing. The two, like, that's the best player he's had. He was a first-team All-Pro, and then when he had James Conner healthy his first 2 years, he's a 5 yards a carry, 1,000-yard running back.
Well, when they had James Conner last year, they were 12th in points, 11th in yards. They were 8th in EPA per play, EPA per rush. They were 7th. Rushing success rate, they were 9th. EPA per pass, they were 13th. So when they were more balanced, they were a better team. I can't take stock out of what happened in 2025. I really can't. There's no way. I watched all those games in the 2025 season. Last season, it always confuses me sometimes, but I watched all those games, and I felt bad for Cardinals fans that they had to watch that because it was basically garbage after garbage after garbage after garbage, and it wasn't that the coaches were garbage; it was the players were kind of not good, and You felt like if Petzing had a better quarterback, let's just say he had a guy like he doesn't even need a Jared Goff. He doesn't even need this, right? Let's say he just had a guy who was like maybe a Kirk Cousins. Maybe he would have done better because when Kyler Murray was in there, they looked disjointed. When Jacoby Brissett came in there, they looked a little better, but they weren't good. You know, Jacoby Brissett. I don't know what you want me to say. If you expect success with Jacoby Brissett, I got some oceanfront property in Nebraska I want to sell you because it just doesn't happen. And all the running backs they were going through, like I said, Zonovan Knight was our fifth string running back at one point here in Detroit. He was starting for the Arizona Cardinals. That tells you a lot. It tells you a whole lot. And then you watch Marvin Harrison dropping balls like it's going out of style, and he hasn't gotten better year after year. That's on him. Michael Wilson looked good. Trey McBride looked good. But those were the only two guys. And when they played better teams, they got shut down and they played the Tennessee Titans, and that game was a total. I remember that Tennessee Titans game.
They
I watched that.
The Packers. I watched that whole game. The Packers were down by 3 with like a minute 30 left. And then they was like a 4th and 3. They bring the field goal unit out to attempt a game time field goal. Then LaFleur calls a timeout. So they had a do or die 4th down, which the Packers got. Then they ended up scoring a touchdown, or else they would have lost to the Cardinals last year.
That game was, well, that game went out of that game was, when I watched that game, it was ridiculous. And when I watched the Titans game, where I know there was a lot of Cardinals fans that were bringing up the Titans game, Jacoby Brissett looked like he was about to die. Okay, he got hit so hard.
That was the game where the guy threw the Del Mercado had the touchdown, and he tossed it away at the 1 yard line.
Yes, that is a game.
They would have gone up like 3 touchdowns if he would have scored that, and it would have been over.
And that changed the whole entire game. It really did.
That was when Gannon absolutely lost his mind and like freaked out. Did you see that clip?
Yes.
They're on the sideline. He just went absolutely crazy on him.
And I don't blame him because that's not something that you should do. But that Tennessee Titans game, they let get away from him, and that play was a huge part of it because it just deflated the team. But he got hit so hard by Draymond. I think it was Draymond. No, it was I think it was Simmons, Jeffrey Simmons. It might have been Jeffrey Simmons. Got hit so hard. I thought for sure you were going to see the backup quarterback. That'd have been the 3rd string quarterback. So I can't take any stock into what happened in last year's thing. And 2023, he was, they averaged 19 points per play, but their rushing success rate was 8th in the in football, 4th in EPA per rush. So, like I said, I don't expect much when you have a quarterback like Kyler Murray. I don't expect much when your talent is kind of terrible. And for me, this whole thing where people are over analyzing it, I've seen it from both sides. I've seen Lions fans doing it, Cardinals fans doing it. And I kept saying to Cardinals fans, no one wants your job. It's the worst job on the planet. It is literally the worst job on the planet. I would take the Raiders job over the Cardinals job. At least I know I'm going to get Fernando Mendoza. I'll take my shot with that, but I'm not. Or there's a rumor that they might get Lamar Jackson, the Raiders. But anyways, that's what I just couldn't stand it. And then the Lions side to it, like the fans going crazy. I felt like Detroit Lions fans. I don't know how you felt, James, because this is where I want to transition this into. I don't know how you feel about the Lions fans going crazy about it. I think here's what I would think. If this guy would have been Mike Kafka, would the reception be as bad? Probably not. Zach Robinson, would the reception be as bad? Probably not. I mean, Justin Rogers said it. He didn't have him on his list. A lot of people didn't have him on his list. But what I like about it, in my opinion, and we don't know what's going to happen until we get on the freaking field, okay? I'm not going to speculate of what's going to happen until we get on the field because, like I said, offensive coordinator is a weird dynamic. It's usually fit in how you react to the players that you coach. So Jared Goff, James Williams, St. Brown, Sewell, how can you fit with them? And I just look at it like this. If Drew Petzing fits what the Lions want to do, and I think what I'm trying to get to is I think the Lions Dan Campbell wants his offense ran. His offense ran. So he can go back into CEO mode. And what it would do is you've seen the clip that if Jameer Gibbs was playing with Dan Campbell calling the plays, he was going to have an MVP type season. So this offense was, they scored 28.3 points per game last year with a offensive coordinator that got ousted because he was just terrible at designing runs. When John Morton was there, it seemed like he tried to do his own little thing. He tried acting like he was Sean Payton. I always had a I when they hired Morton last year, I said the one thing I will say about John Morton. I don't know how he's going to go because I can't speculate on that. I could speculate on it, but I don't know. I don't have anything to go off with John Morton, right? I think his philosophies were great, but it comes down to he never called the offense. He never called an offense. So, with the Jets, but screw the Jets. They're a dumpster fire franchise too. Anyways, John Morton, when he came here, he came from Denver, which was the pass game coordinator of Denver. You saw the pass game for Denver. You said, okay, maybe he could do some things. But when John Morton was the offensive coordinator, what you realize is the run game looked like crap. Looked like total crap. So I think when I look at Drew Petzing, I look at he has success in the run game with James Conner, who, I mean, if you want to be honest with yourself, I think everybody can say this, even Cardinals fans. Jameer Gibbs or James Conner?
I'll take
Jameer Gibbs.
Montgomery over Conner.
Right. I'm just gonna say Gibbs or Gibbs or Conner. Okay, cool. Goff or Murray?
Yeah, it's across the board.
I think you're gonna take Goff. You gonna take the Lions offensive line or the Cardinals offensive line? I'll take the Lions offensive line, even with the little things that they got going on there.
Which, by the way, to that point, PFF graded the Lions offensive line 12th this year. They graded the Cardinals 26th last
year. So that's a big drop. That's a huge drop. So, look, I don't think that Drew Petzing had anything to work with in Arizona. Everyone says Maserati Marv and all that jazz. Maserati Marv is a Toyota Prius Marv. He's just not. He's not the player that everyone expected him to be, and I have a feeling that he is going to be not the best player to come from Ohio State from that year. It's going to be JSN, who is having a freaking phenomenal year at Seattle, and they're still alive. Now we could see a Super Bowl with Jared Stidham and Sam Darnold. What a world we live in. Imagine trying to sell that game.
Broncos are probably screwed now. Somehow the Patriots are just going right back to the Super Bowl, and I honestly don't know who's going to win the NFC game. To be honest,
I don't. I was like, man, if Stidham and Sam Darnold played those, I feel bad for NBC because they're gonna be like, who do we sell to? I'm like, what the hell? But anyways, like the Lions, like this whole offensive coordinator, I have no problem with what they did because they casted a wide net and they interviewed multiple people, got multiple different philosophies, what they would do on the offense, what they would do, and I think they narrowed down to what they want. And I don't think they did that last year with John Morton. They definitely didn't do that, John Morton. So I think they will have a better chance to succeed this time around. And to me, it's all going to come back to: do they improve the offensive line? Yes or no? Yes, hopefully.
I mean, you could make the case, and I've heard people say this this hire more could be on Brad Holmes than it is on Dan Campbell if they get the offensive line right. And to this hire's strength, like part of that, and this is the way I viewed it too, is like if you're getting a guy, the biggest difference between this Lions offense between this year and previous years, obviously losing Frank Ragnow is huge. But to me, it was always the run game. And that was why my big point was I wanted Mike McDaniel, as I narrowed it down to I just think he's a great run game designer. As people have pointed out, like Drew Petzing wasn't on a lot of people's radar. If that did leak, as I said earlier in the show, that they interviewed him and people looked into him more, it would have been an intriguing candidate because one, he's kind of the polar opposite of John Morton. I mean, you've kind of talked about some of it. I mean, this is a guy that's 38 years old. His career trajectory is almost like kind of step for step on par with Ben Johnson, which is kind of funny. He was also like apparently in his wedding, but this is a guy that the run game design is a huge strength. You watch the Bears, that was the huge calling card of their team this year. And honestly, to Ben Johnson's strength, to his credit, the amount of times that the Bears ran on like second and long or second and medium, and then got themselves in a friendly position, and then had the strength of we can run again on third down because then we're live to go for it on fourth down. It just really kept defenses guessing, and that was lacking from the Lions this year. Their run game, especially for the talent they have at running back, just was not good enough. And again, this is a guy in Drew Petzing that has multiple seasons of NFL, 2013 and 24 as the offensive coordinator, where basically any stat I really value the EPA per play. They were a top 10, and even if you bake in the bad 2025 stats, like, and just go from like his stats combined 23 to 25, like there's still a lot of really good, like the good outweighs the bad by a lot. And a lot of those numbers still look good, especially from a run game design standpoint. And, also you mentioned the CEO, like we didn't know, like it really was kind of a big gamble in terms of, John Morton, and just he had the 1 year with the Jets like 10 years ago, and it didn't go very well. But then you're kind of guessing in terms of bringing in a pass game coordinator if they're going to have the great ability to call plays. But then just I guess the last point I would make about it is just and you brought this up as well, but they didn't want to overhaul this offense. This was still an offense that was top 5 in points, top 5 in total offense. And I think that part of it really gets lost in this entire conversation. And they are bringing in a guy that they identified as someone that I think can elevate this run game. And if they do that, that could be kind of the missing ingredient to bring him back from 5 to, 1 or 2. And, you bring in someone like Mike McDaniel, that could have been more of a schematic overhaul than I think even I gave credit for. And this is a guy that they brought in. They, as you said, they did a wide search, and instead of basically, and I guess that would be the last point of it, instead of it just being a Dan Campbell guy, sure, you can, I guess, connect the dots for any guy and say it was a Dan Campbell guy. This is someone that Dan's never worked with. It's not, wasn't someone from the Sean Payton tree. So this was someone that they view as the best fit for this job right now, and being the fit.
So I know that Dan Campbell is a big time analytics guy. He has a tendency to be an analytics guy. So let me give you a stat, okay? Arizona was not good last year with the running backs that they had, the revolving door of running backs. Their success rate as a team was 42.1%, okay? Plus 36 rushing yards over expected. The Detroit Lions success rate in the rushing game, they ranked 22nd with 40.7. So even with them having a revolving door of running backs, from DeMarcado to Bam Knight, which god dang, Bam Knight, James Conner, Larry Moe and Curly from Walmart. I don't care. Like, they had a better success rate than the Detroit Lions did last year. And even with as bad as the offensive line was for Detroit, I mean, I would consider the Arizona Cardinals offensive line objectively worse. They don't have a Penei Sewell by far. They don't have a Taylor Decker, which Taylor Decker could retire. We don't know. They don't have a Tate Radledge. They didn't have a Graham Glasgow. I think their center is comparable to Glasgow in a little bit, but I look at it and I go, the Lions had the 22nd success rate in rushing. Okay, people wanted Mike McDaniel. They had the 40%. They were at 27th. Okay, the Arizona Cardinals were 15th ahead of the Green Bay Packers, the 49ers, the Chargers, the Ravens, and the Jets, which the Jets were 20th, surprisingly. But I look at it and I go, okay, all injuries you put all injuries together, that's pretty impressive from what they all of the pieces that they're missing. And their passing offense was not good by any stretch of the imagination. Like they gave up 59 sacks. To compare that with the Detroit Lions, they gave up 39. So that's a 20 sack difference. It's a lot, and I just look at it like this. He's coming to a better situation. This situation is better for Petzing because if you look at the archetype that a Stefanski needs, um, the way that Stefanski, his best years came under Flacco and Cousins, that's a Jared Goff type quarterback. And even Kevin O'Connell, I was talking to a Vikings fan. Even Kevin O'Connell has that same archetype of the offense that he runs. And you could see the difference that Sam Darnold had to JJ. It's a little bit different. It's, thrown on time.
9.
Yeah.
Don't call him. His name's 9.
9 had a terrible year. What a growth.
Gosh, I can't believe we lost to the Vikings.
We lost twice to them. And we lost
to Max Brosmer.
We lost that one. Max Brosmer.
We lost to 9 and Max Brosmer. Or else we could have won the division.
Max Brosmer, oh my God, you lose a Max Brosmer, you don't deserve to make the playoffs, to be honest. But I look at it like this. I'm not mad at the hire. I can't be mad at the hire because I don't really know what Dan Campbell, what Brad Holmes seen in him that they didn't see in Mike McDaniel. What they've seen in him that they didn't see in Robinson or Kafka or whatever the case may be. Because, like I said a long time ago, I posted on my page. I posted on Twitter too. But a lot of times offensive coordinator comes down to fit. That's all it comes down to. I mean, we see it with Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen had that one offensive coordinator before Joe Brady. Didn't really work. Joe Brady comes, he looks a little bit better, but even right now he's kind of disjointed. But he was better with Brian Dable. And you see, I remember when the Baltimore Ravens got Todd Monken, they were like, this guy's he's gonna fix Lamar. No, he did not fix Lamar. And actually he made Lamar worse. So offensive coordinator is a rare thing. It's not just one player, it's the whole fit and how you fit the whole offense in. And I have a feeling that the reason that Mike McDaniel was not a fit in Detroit had to be Dan Campbell said, please run my offense. It's foolproof. I ran it. You can run it. You can look good. I don't care. I got to go back to the CEO role. That's kind of where I go with this whole thing. I don't think that Dan Campbell is going to bring in a guy and you want to change everything in the offseason. I think that would be totally stupid because the offense doesn't need to be changed. It was a top 5 offense, 28.3 points per game. Doesn't need to be changed. You just need a tune-up, just tune it up a little bit. And if you do that, you'll be fine. And I think that Petzing comes in here. He could offer some things that other coordinators or that could have came in here potentially couldn't. And, even a Zach Robinson. I like Zach Robinson too, but I watched Atlanta a lot last year, and I know Michael Penix sucked, but they just looked disjointed. It was weird. It was a weird fit. Raheem Morris is a moron. So we'll see. I don't even think Michael Penix is the quarterback that Kevin Stefanski wants. So we'll see what he does. Maybe they go get Mac Jones or something, but that's kind of what I think. So all the talk about Petzing was a little bit, I don't know. Yeah, you just can't overreact to the hire because I really don't think you could sit here and say it's a bad hire. You just can't. I think,
can't. And we both talked about this, but let's say whoever they hire Mike McDaniel, it was ultimately going to come down to if week 3 comes around, week 5 comes around, this offense isn't doing what people want it to do. How sick is the hire now? So, to me, it's all going to come down to what happens on the field. I think too, one thing I was thinking about just with the fit with McDaniel specifically is there's the point of you can come here. It is probably going to be a little bit constricted in your ideas because this was a top 5 offense and it does have the personnel to, have a super high floor, which goes into the idea of, we don't want to, we have an established quarterback. We don't want to change a whole ton. So if you're Mike McDaniel, if you do anything but have a top 5 offense, it's kind of, it's not a good thing for you. Whereas, the other with the fit with the Chargers, one, they just lost Jesse Minter. So I think Jim Harbaugh is almost like, to me, and maybe I'm overvaluing Minter, but I view it similarly to like Mike McDonald with John Harbaugh at Baltimore.
Yes.
Like that's kind of almost like you might have just kind of lost the guy that like had you like baked into making the playoffs every year.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
one, now you need to like sell Mike McDaniel as like you're the guy now, and like I need to trust on you to take Justin Herbert to
The next
someone that
level.
hasn't had any success in the playoffs and is still a guy that is super talented but can't win anything, to where now we just lost our main coordinator, and like it's 100% your offense, and I need you to, like, if you get us to the promised land and win, now you are like, it's more in your court than just coming to Detroit. So I think that probably was more appealing to Mike McDaniel too. And then the one thing I am interested in this from just the fit with Petzing in Detroit is I think the communication side of it is a big part too. And John Morton was in the booth last year. To me, reading between the lines, it was almost like John Morton hired David Shaw to like communicate with Jared Goff. And now you're going to have, I think, a guy whose strength is kind of the communication side of it, or one of those strengths. And he's going to be on the field now. So he is going to be talking to Jared Goff throughout the game, which is, I'm interested with David Shaw if they bring him back, because I'm pretty sure that was more of a John Morton hire. But I think the communication from offensive coordinator to quarterback is going to be more direct with Drew Petzing than it was with John Morton. So, but yeah, to what we both just said there, we can talk about it all we want. If they're going to have a good offense this year. And I've kind of boiled, and maybe this is me being naive about it, but I've kind of even boiled it down more to that, just because I think this offense is really great. And I do think I think their offensive line is going to improve, and they're going to have a better offense than they had last year. It might kind of come down to like, 10 to 15 plays of, do we get the key fourth down in this big game that leads to a win? Like, because if we play the first game and we go like 0 for 2 on fourth down, then like everyone will just point to those two plays and say, oh, like Drew Petzing sucks. We couldn't, like, no creativity on that big fourth down play, like blah, blah, blah. So like, it's going to come down to, executing in those big plays and getting the job done. Cause I don't think there's going to be some huge variance to where, oh, we have the 5th ranked offense, now we have the 13th. Like, this is really good personnel. I think they're probably going to have a pretty good offense, and they want to tweak the run game and get it back on track. And I think that's their main goal with this hire. And then if that happens, I think that kind of leads to more consistency overall and just a better offensive product.
Yeah, I look at this. I'll just say it like it is. But when you look at this team, I said it before and I'll say it again. It's a Ferrari, and not everyone could drive a Ferrari. I mean, some people could drive a Ferrari. They could drive to the store or whatever, but no one could drive the Ferrari like a race car, right? This is the same type of thing. Can you drive this offense to its full peak maximum, or are you just gonna take it to the store, take it to Home Depot, take it to Meyer, and say, "All right, cool. You took it to 40 miles. You didn't even take it on the highway." Right? That's what I felt like with John Morton. With Petzing, I think I could expect a little bit more because I've seen what he did with Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is not a good quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what any stupid Cardinals fan says. He is not a good quarterback.
Do you agree with me? You want to play the Cardinals week 1? Let's just cross off. Let's week 1 confirmation bias. The fact that Petzing is great if we put up a big win. That the 4th place schedule is a big deal because they're a part of it, and they're a huge drop off compared to playing like the Rams or 49ers.
Oh yeah, and, so we could destroy a Vance Joseph defense.
Yeah, I just want to give me the Cardinals early so I can just, even if it like then Drew Petzing could stink for the next 3 weeks, but I just want 1 week, week 1, 1-0. Let me like talk crap to all these Cardinals fans. Like, no, Drew Petzing's great. We just scored 40 points. It was just your team stinks, and we have Jahmyr Gibbs and St. Brown, and our team's great. And then I also want to like victory lap, 1 week victory lap, the 4th place schedule, and hopefully like the Packers play like the Rams or something and lose, and
Yeah.
it's even better. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
hoping for. Give me the Cardinals early.
Well, I think the Cardinals would be great to have early, because I don't think they're a good team. I don't think their
No.
talent level on that team is absolutely not good. And then when I watched it, I was like, okay, I don't want to beat it to like a dead horse, but like when I watched the Cardinals last year, and if you just compare it to the Detroit Lions, like there is no comparison. Like I think you would take Trey McBride. Like every team in the NFL would probably take Trey McBride, but Detroit has Sam Laporta. But like, but you look at it and you go, who else are you taking? Like who else is taking Marvin Harrison to start? And if you just go down the list of NFC teams and you go, they're more talented, they're more talented, they're more talented, they're more talented. I even put the Giants ahead of them. And I had
Yeah, the Cardinals are terrible. Honestly, they're terrible. They're going to
and I
finish
had
last again in that
and I,
division. I don't even
and I
think
had
it's even really a debate.
and that's an impossible division to play in. It's impossible. That's a
That's
tough
another
division.
side to this too. Like, and I heard even like Mike Valeni talking about this. Like, as I just brought up, Gannon is going to be a somewhat coveted defensive coordinator option in this
Yes.
cycle. Like, he's not some horrible coach. We just went down the list. Like I just talked about in this Cardinals GM's first trade, he passes on Will Anderson,
Oh
and
my
then
God.
he makes a trade to where the Lions got both Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta in the trade, and that was like all within like an hour of each other.
And he wanted Paris Johnson, which Paris Johnson
Which
might
he's
be
not
all
bad, honestly.
right.
I don't want to like crap on him, but like still, it wasn't a good trade. Like you lost the trade. Like we went
But
down
when
and got
you pick
Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam
when you pick a
Laporta.
top 10 offensive lineman, you expect him to be Sewell. You
Yeah.
expect him to be a Will Campbell in New England, who Will Campbell's having a rough year. But those type of guys, you don't expect them to be just a guy. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where I go. Arizona's I listened to the Cardinals fans. I went and watched it. It was a waste of my time, to be honest. I didn't learn anything from the Cardinals offense. I actually learned how sad I feel for those poor Arizona people. But then I remember they have sun all the time, so they can go
They
F
got a
themselves.
cool field where they like motor in the
That is
playing
pretty cool.
surface. Like
I wa-
that's sick.
I did watch that on I think YouTube. I watched
That
how
thing. I mean, that was
it's
so far ahead of its time. Honestly,
oh
looking
yeah.
back on it, like
That's a cool stadium too. Now it's in the middle of nowhere, which is stupid, but it's cool. Arizona's a weird place. Their teams are weird. They can't even keep a hockey team, so it is what it is. As we move on to the quarterback, so this is kind of where we're gonna go. We're gonna go to the well, that's the quarterback room. Oh, damn it, I'm getting all the ones wrong. Quarterback
you
room.
knew quarterback was like the least noteworthy
This
one. So you
this is
just
the
had it
least.
last.
This is the one we don't care about. What we do care about, but obviously Goff is clear quarterback number one, and I don't think anybody needs a reminder of how good he was this year. He had 4,500 yards, 34 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, a rating of 105.5, 7.9 yards per attempt, a completion percentage of 68%. His completion percentage over expected was plus 1.6. His EPA per dropback was plus 79. He was sacked 38 times. And he was under pressure 34.1% of the time. There's no doubt in my mind that this guy is you can win a Super Bowl with this guy. All the stats bear it out. There's no rhyme or reason to go through this and say, oh well, if we get Lamar Jackson, no. If we do this, no. And I seen some stupid trade proposal, and I don't know why I see these trade proposals now. Josh Allen to Detroit for like half the roster, and like I'm like, no, shut up. Even people on nice stuff, when you'll hear him talk about Joe Burrow, trade for Joe Burrow, you better back up a Brinks truck to get that. So Goff is the QB number one. I think he was not even close to the issue. I think that he really helped you along, that you didn't, that he was so.
I'd even further. I'd say not only was he not the issue, this year kind of was the final nail in the coffin for me in terms of I was already a big Goff person. And
Yes.
listen, there's tons of Lions fans out there that will go to the grave saying, oh, if we just traded 8 first-round picks for Josh Allen, we would have won the Super Bowl that year. I get it, but ultimately, like, this was a great year for Jared Goff, and at minimum, you can't sit there and these same people will say our offensive line was a disaster. Dan Campbell messed up the offensive coordinator situation, but then they'll still look at Jared Goff's season and be like, "Oh, if we just had a more athletic quarterback, we would have done whatever." Like, so to me, this was this was kind of your like almost a worst case scenario if you were someone that wasn't a Jared Goff person, because if I would have told you going into you don't know his stats, I tell you his offensive line kind of falls off a cliff to the point where the universal opinion is like it's almost like the offense, like from a Detroit fan, it's like this offensive line sucks. I said it was the 12th ranked PFF, so within context, it wasn't the worst ever. But in terms of where the Lions had been the previous years, the O-line was terrible this year. If I would have told you we'd make a offensive coordinator change before week 10, if I told you the running game wasn't good enough to the point where like David Montgomery kind of low key after the season was kind of leaking, he didn't really want to be here, or there's at least some there's some unknowns about that. The Brad Holmes comments about David Montgomery, if I would have told you that. And now, we're we're sitting here and like, it's just, I don't know. It just seems to me like there's a little bit of a in the moment reactions to a lot of this stuff happening in real time, because ultimately this was like a good offense. And, it's just, I don't know. It's just, I don't really get how, it wasn't perfect. As I just said, all the caveats, this was still like a top 5 offense in scoring and total offense. And Jared Goff's numbers were really good. And man, it stinks he had the total disaster game in Minnesota where we had all those turnovers. If not, the numbers would have looked way better. He would have had four interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
He really did not. That was a big step forward from him this year, especially with all the pressure he was under. He really was not turning the ball over at all. I mean, what did he finish with? 8 interceptions.
He finished with 8. So
8 interceptions, and he had the horrible game against Minnesota where it accounted for like half of his turnovers on the year. So this was a bad look. If you were someone that was like, I told you all those things that happened, you would have probably said, "Oh, Jared Goff is he fell off a cliff this year and it was a disaster."
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Stats, so.
It wasn't a disaster because when you look at it from the perspective of where do quarterbacks struggle having the most pressure,
up the middle, right?
Up the middle. And when you look at this year in terms of the 4 teams that are left in the playoffs, the Broncos got the most pressures in the NFL from their starting defensive tackle duo. The Seahawks were 2nd. The Rams were 3rd. The Patriots were 4th. So basically what you're saying is if you can get pressure up the middle against mobile quarterbacks.
Look how bad Stafford looked against the Bears with all the pressure Dennis Allen was able to put on. It was to the point where Sean McVay was going to ruin the game by letting Stafford pass every down where they should have just stuck to the run game.
It just goes to show you the worst place for a quarterback to face pressure is up the middle. So, guys like Lee McNeil and Tyreek Williams and Roy Lopez, those guys, they got to be a lot better next year because I think that would open up the pass rush. But when you talk about the quarterback position, quarterbacks don't like pressure up the middle. And a guy like Jared Goff definitely doesn't like pressure up the middle. And the worst place on the team in terms of where they faced the most pressure was up the middle. And for Jared Goff to have 34 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, a rating of 105.5, that's a great season from what he dealt with. And you could sit here all day long and talk about this and that and this and that. It don't really matter. If you get pressure.
All the guys you want to name don't do anything. Like Josh Allen hasn't won anything. Lamar Jackson hasn't won anything.
That's a point.
Herbert hasn't won anything. Those are the 3 poster childs of if the less athletic quarterbacks were just more like those guys, they could escape the pressure. They could do this and that, and they would win, and everything would be perfect. And then you watch Josh Allen have 4 turnovers because he's running around like an idiot, and you see Lamar Jackson never be able to rein in his game in the playoffs and be able to move his team consistently. Justin Herbert, hasn't won a playoff game, right?
No,
So,
no.
I mean, I don't know. I think luckily at the end of the day, the organization just, it's not even like it's a non-starter for them. Like Jared Goff's the quarterback. So,
Yes.
and I think for the most part, like even like take Jim Costa for example. That was a guy that like was kind of like even as recent as 2023 trying to be like, maybe we should like I might want to get rid of Goff because we can elevate in this and whatever. And now even he's like, guys, like look what football Jared Goff just put out there the last 3 years. Like he's the quarterback. So you're not gonna upgrade from him. It's gonna be dumb to whatever trade it would be, whatever you're giving up. So he's the quarterback, and catch a pass, Josh Reynolds, and we would have went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the way I look at it. And the question behind it though is, will there be someone new behind Jared Goff? Kyle Allen, he can be a decent quarterback. And when I look at the quarterback class in free agency, not that great. I mean, if you want to take a chance on a Marcus Mariota, okay. Joe Flacco's 41. Yeah, that's not really a great one. Trubisky, he's going to be commanding $4.4 million. You get down to it, you go Sam Howell, okay, maybe. Zach Wilson, no. Tyrod Taylor, no. Skylar Thompson, no. Brett Rippon, no. Gardner Minshew, that'd be interesting. Teddy Bridgewater, maybe. But Trey Lance is a free agent. Jimmy Garoppolo is a free agent. Kenny Pickett's a free agent. So those guys could potentially. I think we will see another quarterback behind Jared Goff. Maybe Kyle Allen will be back. Who knows? But I always look at it like if Jared Goff goes down, this team's screwed anyway. So that's kind of the way it goes. And that's the quarterback room for you. I mean, this was probably the least conversational about the quarterback room because I mean, what are you
From
gonna
the
say?
whole team, really. I mean,
Jared Goff is easily QB number one. There's not like this opportunity window where you can go get Tom Brady or Mahomes or something like that. Every other quarterback, it's like, okay, you're kind of taking a chance with that because, like you said, and it was interesting. I talked to someone. They said it was someone that's really, really smart. He's an analytical nerd. He's a big nerd. He total nerd. Never played football in his entire life. He's like, if you took Tom Brady, Mahomes, Manning, you would account for only 6 years of your life would be other quarterbacks. I was like, the fuck is wrong with you, dude? But I thought about it, I was like, that's pretty much true, dude. Tom Brady ran it, Mahomes ran it. I mean, I've seen Nick Foles when I've seen Jalen Hurts when I've seen quarterbacks win it. That Trent Dilfer was in 2000. You take away
I know that Super Bowl, like it was terrible. One, like Tom Brady didn't do anything. Like he wasn't out there playing anything. And I forget the wide receiver, but I just saw this. I should have remembered it so I could bring it to the table. But Goff threw an absolute dime in that Super Bowl for a touchdown, and his receiver dropped it. It was like perfect. It was, you know what I'm talking about? It was perfectly floated. It was like right over his shoulder.
Okay.
And he just he drops it.
It's funny you bring it up because
it was like that could have won them the Super Bowl, and that would have been the pass. So it was like, oh my gosh, look at this in a 13-6 game where even Tom Brady wasn't doing anything. Jared Goff feathered in this beautiful touch pass, like over a defender, dropped in perfectly for a touchdown, and the Rams won. Nope, they dropped it and they lost.
You know what's funny? It's you bring that up, and it's actually really funny now that you said that because you know who it was. The guy who lost the Buffalo game.
Was it Cooks?
Yes, it was.
Oh my god, it's funny. That's actually hilarious.
That's hilarious. So
guy that had the interception play.
People bring up that.
Wow, that guy's had horrible luck then. He should have, that guy's haunted for his whole career. He dropped the touchdown pass in the Super Bowl, which easily could have shifted that game and had them win the Super Bowl. And then he was the guy that
Yes.
He's the Bills guy, and then was he the guy that got was he on the Saints?
Yes.
He wasn't the one that got lit up in the NFC Championship game with Goff. Or no,
No, I don't.
because he was on Goff's team. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, no way was he that guy too. Okay.
But
All right.
he's had a couple big drops in the
We
playoffs.
just missed two like
He actually
life
had a big
changing, haunting
he
plays.
actually had a big drop against I think it was with Houston or whatever. He had a chance to take the they
That
had a
guy's
chance
been
to
around forever.
he's been around forever and he's been but you going back to that Super Bowl, people always bring up that Super Bowl like it's some bad thing. That was the best defensive Super Bowl we will ever see in our entire life because Brady was held to 1 interception, 0 touchdowns.
Yeah,
Goff
right. That's the thing that I
Goff
always yeah.
Goff had 0 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. The winning
Should have
play
done
was a
that.
rushing touchdown by James White. That was it. That was it. It was Wade Phillips versus Bill Belichick. It was defense on defense. That was what was going to win the game. And everyone always goes, "Oh, that game shows everything." Does it? Does it?
He made
Because
a lot of big time throws against the Saints, and that was like a crazy hostile environment.
But like I said, does that show you everything? No, because when I think about Jared Goff, I think, okay, people bring up Sean McVay and they say, this guy is going to be he's a great offensive play caller. Well, then why didn't you call different plays? You were going against a defensive maestro and you still couldn't do it. So Sean McVay deserves blame. There obviously Stafford has, helped them out a lot. But even like in the Bears,
I just brought up, that was a horrible coach. Like they should have lost that game, honestly, because of Sean McVay. Like his like abandoning the run in the way he did was coaching malpractice. Really, it was brutal.
I thought the same thing. I said if he keeps doing what he's doing, they're gonna lose. Luckily, Caleb Williams throws a pass that the announcers are like, DJ Moore should have ran. Oh, and it's like, bro, he threw it like right there. Like
I blame Caleb Williams, honestly. Second down, you need like 10 yards to kick a game-winning field goal, and you're chancing it on DJ Moore, who's like a known. You kind of have to worry every little movement he has because he might not be trying. You're gonna rely on him like going like all to the like max effort when he's out there jogging. You're looking right at it, and it was an amazing, honestly, play design by Ben Johnson because the entire like middle of the field was open. So yes, DJ Moore was kind of an idiot that he had no awareness and didn't like.
Caleb Williams was an idiot too for throwing that ball.
You don't need a chance pass like that 30 yards downfield when you're a first down away from being able to kick a game-winning field goal, and you're basically just guessing or hoping that he adjusts, and it's only second down, so it's not like you needed to make a do or die play like that.
That's where Ben Johnson was probably like, I wish I had Jared Goff, because Jared Goff would have never.
He would have like thrown it at his feet, or
he would. Yeah, he
would basically made it to where it would have been an amazing catch, but he.
Incomplete passer. It was going to be an amazing catch. That's basically what it's come down to. Yeah. But we go to the running back room. And this is the most interesting one because, obviously with the new guy, Drew Petzing, could there be a big time turnover coming? Obviously, Craig Reynolds got what was on waivers. When you look at the Lions' season stats at the rushing, stats or whatever. Attempts, you had Jameson Williams 6 attempts, Sailors had 2 attempts, Craig Reynolds had 3 attempts, Vaki had 1 attempt. So those guys, I mean, you could be looking for 2 or 3 running backs. Dave Montgomery had 158 attempts, 716 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, and 8 touchdowns. Pretty good for Dave Montgomery, but he should have got a lot more touches, to be honest. Jahmyr Gibbs was fantastic. 243 attempts, 1,200 yards, 5.0 yards per carry, 13 touchdowns. So again, he had a great year. I mean, I look at this running back room, and I look at it from this standpoint. Like, there's players in the draft you can get, no doubt about it. There's players in the draft you can get. Obviously, if you want to go out in free agency, you want to get a Tyler Algier. He's valued at $1.8 million. You want to go get a guy like Jerome Ford, he's $1.6 million. Cheap guys. Kenneth Gainwell is $2.9 million. But DeMarcado is a free agent. He's a restricted free agent, so he might not get the free agency. But you got Hassan Haskins, Zamir White, a lot of Brian Robinson is a free agent. AJ Dillon's a free agent. Miles Sanders is a free agent. Raheem Mostert is a free agent. not a lot of great free agents from the running back side, so you might want to go to the drafting side. But could you see a big time turnover in this room? Because I think in the end they're going to keep David Montgomery. They're probably going to restructure his contract, which would be the smart thing to do. Because I think he fits the Petsing offense. And I think when Brad Holmes made that comment, I think it was reluctant on who was going to be the offensive coordinator. Did they feel like Dave Montgomery was going to be a fit in this offense? And when you watch Petsing's offense, you kind of say, yeah, Dave Montgomery could be a fit in this offense.
Yeah. To me, there's a lot of moving pieces to it. One, I do think like David Montgomery was like pissed off at the end of the season.
Yes.
I think like there's like reporting out there basically that, reading between the lines, I think David Montgomery's representatives weren't really happy with how this season went. With that being said, I do think he's a perfect fit with what Drew Petzing wants to do. I think, yes, it would be ideal for the Lions to want to restructure his contract, but that might be the concession you have to make because I don't think he's going to want to, he's not going to he'll be like, okay, then trade me then because I think my value is what my contract is. The Lions extended David Montgomery. They gave him that initial contract. It was going great. And then I can't remember the timeline of exactly when they extended him, but Lions extended him. So, I think they might have to just bite that bullet. I don't know that there's a world where he takes less money and stays here. But I want David Montgomery here. I think his numbers this year were really good, 4.5 yards per carry. I was kind of one that was even saying maybe it's even a little bit overblown that he's not being used as much, but I think there definitely is more room to use him within this offense, especially if they're going to really try to almost triple down into trying to get back into the running game. So to me, if you lose him, that creates a hole on the roster that it's in no way a given that I'm going to get someone that's going to give me 700 to 800 yards at 4.5 or higher per carry.
Mm-hmm.
And, sure, you'll be paying that person less money, but you might not get anywhere near the production. And David Montgomery is kind of a heart and soul player to me on this team. I think if I'm just hand-picking a guy that meshes well with Jahmyr Gibbs, I think he is someone that complements him really well. And while I love Jahmyr Gibbs and think he's the best running back in the NFL, I also value not running him into the ground, especially when it seems kind of inevitable that the Lions are going to extend him at some point. So I'm good with keeping David Montgomery, even if we might be paying him a little bit more than where his role might be. Although at the same time, I think you do want to, compared to last year, you do want to give him a little bit more of a role this year. As you mentioned, they did lose Craig Reynolds, so it might be, I think, maybe worth it. I hate to compare it to the Bears, but Kyle Monungai went in the 6th or 7th round. It's probably worth drafting a running back late in the draft that can double as a special teams guy that if you really hit on him, maybe he is a diamond in the rough and is your future running back too.
Yeah, I really didn't like the way they used Dave Montgomery this year. Because when you think about it, he had if you look at the snap counts, okay, Jahmyr Gibbs took 67.6, 67%, 0.6. So he took 67%. Dave Montgomery was 37%. I remember last year it was 40-50. I think it was 40-60 Jahmyr Gibbs. If they would have just gave it a little bit more to Dave Montgomery, I think that could have done it a lot better. And I think it would have kept Jahmyr Gibbs fresh. That's what I want to do. I want to keep Jahmyr Gibbs fresh. And even if Dave Montgomery stays on the roster, I still think there's going to be running backs coming in here because Sailors, I don't think, is a great running back, but he did play a lot in special teams, almost 60%.
I really didn't like him on special teams, honestly. He was just kind of a guy. He wasn't great. Tom Kennedy was the big spark on the kick return because our kick return hadn't give us anything all year, basically.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at it like this, okay, I could kind of I was just saying that special teams is just that's all you can give you pretty
For
much.
sure. Yeah.
Craig Reynolds was claimed by another team, so he's not coming back. And Sion Vaki, I mean, he played 39% of the I like him as a special teams guy, like in terms of punt return, punt kick and everything. He played 39% of the time. So I do think there's going to be a drastic overhaul in that running back room in terms of bringing in at least 2 guys because you want 4 guys on your roster. But if they get rid of Montgomery, that opens up a huge hole. And
It does.
I mean, I'm looking at like the running backs. Like you can go get a guy like if you want Najee Harris 2.97. If you want a guy like Rico Dowdle, okay. Isaiah Pacheco at $4.3 million. Okay, like whatever. If you want to do that, you could do that, But I think the best case scenario is they keep Dave Montgomery, draft a running back like in the 4th or 5th round, and then maybe you get a running back near training camp that could be your 4th running back. I don't really think that they're going to put a whole lot of investment into the running back position by any stretch of imagination. So the running back room is fascinating because they had a great running back room in terms of the rushing yards over expected. Both were over 125 plus. They both lost 2 fumbles, so that really sucks. But I mean, the only one that had, Jahmyr Gibbs had a great year, no doubt about it. But if you get the offensive line gelled and fixed in the interior, both these guys can really play a big role, especially with the way that Montgomery could kind of like go in there as a bruiser. And then you got Gibbs, he's a speed demon and he's agile as hell. So it kind of mixes up things, especially when you're a defense. So the running back room is fascinating to me. That's one I circled when we were going to do this podcast because I think this is the one that if I was going to circle a position that could potentially be an underlying position that they go in the draft, this was a position right here.
And it is worth bringing up that because I remember this really vividly going into it would have been the 2023 season. So as soon as the 2022 season ended, I'm thinking about the running back room and I'm like, okay, you have Jamal Williams, who's like, no way are they going to let him walk in free agency. And then you have DeAndre Swift, who is going into his contract year in 2023. And I was like, okay, great. Like he had a pretty decent 2022 year. I'm all good on just running it back with those 2 guys. DeAndre Swift on a contract year is going to be really motivated. That was the year he ended up going to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And was pretty decent. But, the Lions went in a completely different direction, did not re-sign Jamal Williams, made the big trade that I just referenced earlier in the show with the Cardinals to ultimately get Jahmyr Gibbs, and then had gotten signed David Montgomery in free agency. So, this could be another thing where, Brad Holmes alluded to it kind of in the end of season press conference. And then he ultimately is going to say, you know what? We love Jahmyr Gibbs. He's the best running back in the NFL. We're paying David Montgomery a pretty good amount of money. He can go be a number 1 running back somewhere. Someone will value him more than we will and can. And there did seem to kind of be almost like we don't want to wrong this guy vibe to it. Like we love David Montgomery and like we kind of felt bad that we wasted he could have had more of a role. But I'm still in the camp of like, let's just boost his usage up a little bit. He's an effective running back. This is arguably, if not the best running back duo in the NFL. From all accounts, these guys, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, really like each other and are effective playing with each other. So, we'll find out what happens. But he is on David Montgomery is under contract for this year and next year, right? Like this isn't his contract year, is it?
No, I don't believe. Let me put it up. Dave Montgomery, running back, Dave Montgomery right here. Yeah, his cap
had 2 more years this year and next year, I think.
Yeah,
his cap a 3-year deal in 2023, but then he got extended.
His cap hit is this year is $8.3 million. which is not much when you think about it. His dead cap hit would be 4.8 million. So you're gonna take a half, half that, put it in dead cap. When I look at the running backs in this draft though, coming up though, I look at guys like that could be available late in the draft. Nick Singleton could be a great one. Katron Allen could be a good one. Uh, uh, Roman Hemby, who played for Indiana, could be a good one. Eli Heidenreich from Navy could be a pretty good one.
Jeremiah Love at 17 overall.
Ugh.
Fans would be so mad if they did that.
I honestly, if you want the truth, I would wait till the third round to get his backup at Notre Dame, Jadarian Price. He's a pretty good. He's a bruiser too. So, I mean, you look at this team and you go, okay, there's opportunities for them to get better in the running back room. Obviously, what they do with Dave Montgomery is going to be a huge portion of it. And then when we get to, after the draft, we'll see what is going in the room and what it's looking like. But we'll see what they're gonna if they're gonna cut David, trade him, whatever the case may be. They got decisions to make in that running back room because I don't think it's good enough, especially the depth when you look at it like the third and fourth string. And we know that they value special teams, but Co and Vaki can't stay healthy, so that's another reason that they might have to look at guys in the draft for sure. As we look at the wide receiver room, let's just start off with the two wide receivers that actually mean something. You have St. Brown, 1,400
Don't do an underhand. Don't be doing my boy Tesla like that. He means something too. All right.
Oh, I know.
We already have every line. I'm giving you a hard time, but I love the worst thing ever Brad Holmes did in his whole life was trading for Tesla. Every single argument always relates. Yeah, but what about trading the extra picks for Tesla? Even in this thing, I've seen now we're gonna value tight ends more. We shouldn't have taken Tesla. There's so many. I guess I'll start off with this because I'll take it in a totally different direction. With the Tesla thing, I want to say this because there's all these conversations we have about the roster. It's all like, oh, Brad Holmes didn't have a succession plan, or Brad Holmes didn't focus on the depth. But then at the same token, when we do take a guy that for what his role was, did fill a need, because every offseason we were panicking about who was going to be wide receiver 3. And I get it.
Yeah.
The more aggrieved part of it is the assets we traded to get him more, I guess, than the pick itself. But I just think that's a position where it's not like you're just playing one guy. He is kind of a starter being a wide receiver. But that's a position that if any of those guys go down, now it's turned on Brad Holmes, and it's well, what the hell? Why is the fallback option to anyone getting hurt Khalif Raymond or Dominic Lovett or whatever? So it just is one of those things that it would go against them if we didn't have a viable guy. And then on top of it, and I'm hitting the wide receiver part, going all in with Tesla when we have St. Brown and Jameson Williams. But I just think he was what third round pick? At minimum, I think he was one of, if not the best third round picks, or okay, maybe he wasn't the best, but he's up there. What is this crazy bar he has to hit as a third round pick where it's okay, can he just break even from the assets we traded to get him? Because he had 6 touchdowns and he looks kind of he could be really, really good. So I don't know. I'm fascinated with Lions fans, how they rationalize Tesla, because it just seems we traded, and everyone always says 3 third-round picks, even though the one we got back was 32 spots higher than the one we were gonna pick at 102. We picked at 70, so we went up 32 spots. And I believe we also got the pick back to where we got Miles Frazier as well, even though that really is never baked into the narrative as well. But I don't know. I'm fascinated with the Tesla thing, I guess. I think a lot of people just ultimately just hate it no matter what. And I think he could be pretty good. So,
yeah, I like Tesla. And, a lot of people miss about Isaac Tesla was, a lot of people say Khalif Raymond played more than him. That's a lie. Tesla played 39.6% of the snaps. Khalif Raymond played 32.5% of the snaps. Obviously, when you have JMO and you have St. Brown, the target share is not going to be your way. But when you look at touchdowns, I mean, Tesla had 6 touchdowns, 6 receiving touchdowns. Jameson Williams had 7, and Amon-Ra had 11. Gibbs had 5. Laporta had 3. Now, if Laporta was healthy, I think he'd have obviously more. But Tesla was huge. He has had 6 touchdowns. No matter how you slice it, that's pretty freaking good. And his catch rate over expected was 7.6, which was the highest on the team. Regarding the target shares. The only one that was close to him was Laporta. That was based on the targets. But when you look at some of the things that he needs to get better at, like Tesla needs to get better at run blocking. That's the number one thing. I think that's why they were so hesitant to put him on the field, because he did look a little out of sorts sometimes at the run blocking. But on the same token, everyone that clowned the pick, here's who you could have picked if you didn't pick Tesla.
This is the part I want more people to dig into this. What 3rd round pick would have been a starter? And it's, it was a luxury pick. If we would have done this, we would have got a starter. Okay, who was going to get?
So there's roughly maybe 3 or 4 guys that you could say could start. But here's
the other thing too, before you get into it, is we were going to pick at 102, right? That was going to be our next pick. So it's like, it's almost like you can't even really include some of the, well, I guess you could if you trade it up and you pick someone else, I guess. But
here's the problem though. There's 2 players that I look at and I go, okay, maybe. And these were guys who, I don't know how you want to say it. Josiah Stewart was a guy I liked, right? I said, Josiah Stewart. He had 3 sacks this year, so that could have helped out, in the defensive end room. But there's Jalen Noel. All right, he had 2 touchdowns. He ain't helping. There was no player besides Darius Alexander who had 3.5 sacks with New York.
I think 2 of them might have been against the Lions, actually. That's the kid from Toledo.
Yes. Besides,
he. And then Harold Fannin in the 3rd round. That was probably the best 3rd round pick this year.
Yeah, Harold Fannin was where was he at?
I think he was a 3rd rounder.
I don't think he's a 3rd rounder. Anyways, Caleb Johnson was a 3rd rounder. You're not going to pick Caleb Johnson. Savion Williams, no. Josiah Stewart, okay, 3 sacks, whatever.
Yeah, Fannon's 67 overall in the 3rd round. That was probably the best 3rd round pick.
The only 3rd round pick that is better than Tesla, better than Darius Alexander's Jonas Sanker, the kid from Virginia. And if you want to include playing time, Dylan Gabriel was probably the best. So this whole you could have got a starter. No, none of these guys started. And I think I went on it. Everyone always says you got to get a starter in the draft, right? I think when I went back and I looked at it, there's like 30 players that started last year from last year's draft. So, unless you're Tyleik Williams started, Tate Ratledge started. And I think I have I posted it on my page. Where is it? I gotta scroll past a bunch of Red Wing stuff. So here it is. This kind of goes into Brad Holmes on how he does things. So look at this. If you look at yearly rookie snap count, Detroit's 4th. They had 8.4 last year, which was a down year, but Tennessee had more, which is a rebuilding team. The Jets had more. Cleveland had more. Miami, Cincinnati had more. But you look at some of these teams that were competing for a championship, being in the playoffs, Kansas City, no. Green Bay was less than Detroit. So just look at it, and you look at the 25, and you go, what team?
Less than Detroit too.
Yeah, what teams are in green in 2025? It's all rebuilding teams. Just put it into perspective. Detroit's 2024 draft is absolutely terrible, but they had a 21.4% snap count in 2021. 2022, 12.7, which is still among the highest, 13.4 in 2023. So again, I don't go by all this mumbo jumbo. Oh, you could have got this guy. You could have started this guy. That doesn't equate to what is reality. Reality is you go down the list of the people that were drafted in the third round. And when you're saying that the best player that was in that draft, in terms of
Fannin,
the
67 overall. Fannin.
so he was a oh yeah he was yeah but he's picked before Tesla. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, Fannin was the best pick in the third round. Cool. I mean, the Buffalo Bills picked
Who
Landon
also
Jackson.
went like 20. What? That's still like 20, or no? That was still ahead of where we couldn't even taken him because he would have been off the board at 70.
We picked at 70. They picked at 67. So yeah,
Right. So he wouldn't even been there. So
in
honestly,
the
like we probably got the best. Like we got the best third round pick that was available. Honestly, in my opinion, I think Tesla. I would take Tesla over any of the people you just named that was available.
the only one that would make sense, but again, we have safeties. We had safeties going into the draft, so it wouldn't have made sense. But
Who was it?
Jonas Sanker from New Orleans, but I
Okay.
don't. He wouldn't have started here. Like he just
Yeah.
wouldn't. But he had 2 interceptions on the year, I think.
Well,
But
maybe he would have once everyone in the secondary got
oh,
injured.
I take it back. Xavier Watts would have been great too, but he was a safety too. So
Is
if
that
you're
the Falcons guy?
yes, yep,
Oh, he did have a good year. Okay, I know.
yeah,
I didn't see this. Honestly, I didn't see the Saints like play at all, so I didn't know who that first guy is. But that Falcons guy looked really. I saw him a couple different times. He looked really good.
yeah, he had 5 interceptions on the year, so he was pretty damn good. But anybody else, no. I mean, even like the offensive linemen were pretty bad, and none of them started a game. So and
I
like
just think it like at minimum you have to, even if you're this one that like every single thing the Lions do, you're one of those, yeah, but they did this, like they traded too many picks for Tesla. Like you have to at least admit like he's pretty good. Like it wasn't trading up for, like it wasn't Hendon Hooker or Broderick Martin. Like this is a guy that has a clear role on the team. I think he was at like about 39-40% you said for snap count. I
yep,
think even this, like I don't think they had some grandiose big plan for him this year. I think he exceeded expectations this year, honestly. I think they viewed him as like a red zone guy, and that's kind of it this year. I think by the end of the year they knew they had to play him more.
yeah, and he had a good year. 6
He did.
touchdowns is a good year.
Yeah.
And I look at it like this too. If you were to rank the best players in the third round, okay, based on production, just production, you would go offensive production, okay? We'll just go offense because it's hard to equate defense to
Yeah.
offense, right? So if you were to take the 2 best offensive production players, it would be Harold Fannin had 6 touchdowns, 731 yards, 72 receptions. Isaac Tesla had 6 touchdowns, tied with Fannin. There was no one close. Jalen Noel had 2. Kyle Williams for the New England Patriots, he had 3. Um, Pat Bryant for the Denver Broncos had 1. Like there's no player on on the offensive end that was better than those 2. And Fannin wasn't even available for Detroit.
Right.
So everyone talks about the Tesla pick. I think it was a good pick. You're gonna reap the
It might have
rewards.
been, hey, we might have overpaid with, I get it. We traded up. No one's probably going to win the argument of like, they traded a lot to get him. Okay. I still think the production wise is at least in the ballpark of, okay, we got rid of a couple extra third round picks. We did solve an issue. Like we do have a guy that's going to be a top 3 receiver for us for the next 3-4 years. And he's like, this guy can be a pretty big red zone threat. I think he probably will get 4 to 6 touchdowns again next year. So, I guess going into the other part of the wide receiver room, I have to think a huge part, and I tweeted this out earlier a couple weeks ago, but Brad Holmes extending Jamison Williams, and then Jamison Williams having a top 10 year basically in terms
1,000-yard
of
year. Yes.
he was top 10 overall in yards. I think he really established himself as a true big time guy, and someone that I think is more than just. I think his first couple of years was viewed as more of like almost even a gadget. Like we're gonna give him reverses, and we just need to get him in space. I think this guy still is kind of ascending, and I don't want to say just scratching the surface, but I still think he has a lot more way to go. I mean, this
Oh
was
yeah.
he was reliable on third down. I know there's numbers out there that a lot of his stats went for most of his catches went for first downs. He was
Yep.
very reliable on third down.
Mhm.
Obviously, one of the more, if not the most explosive wide receiver in the league. A lot of those numbers back that up. I think he did have, of the wide receivers in the top 10 who had 1,000 yards, his average catch or the yard per reception was the highest, which,
Mhm.
not a surprise to us, but that's still, I mean, that's really good. You're among the 10 best receivers in the NFL. Anytime they throw to you, you're still getting more yards than any of those other guys. So that contract, I think, really is going to already, I think, is a win. And any team in the NFL would be thrilled to death to have Jamison Williams and have him under the deal that he's going to be under. And if at any point it makes sense for the Lions to trade him, which it doesn't anytime in the future, that's a contract that's not going to be that hard to get rid of at all.
Yeah, and to go back to your Tesla thing, you know, a lot of people will go before I hit JMO. A lot of people will hit on Tesla and they'll be like, "Well, they could have drafted a defensive end." How many defensive ends do you think got over 2 sacks in that draft after Tesla was drafted?
I don't know. I'd actually be like, was there anyone decent? Like who would have been a good defensive end to take there?
Just I'll give you an over under. I'll give you over under a 3. 3
Yeah,
people.
I'll go under just because I don't think there was a ton of like even like what's his face on the Giants that went super high, like almost had like no sacks this year or whatever, the Penn State kid.
If
So
you
I'll
would
go
have went
under. I'll go
if
under.
you would have went 2 sacks, if you would have went 2.5 sacks or over, there was only one player that did that. One player. His name was Tonka Hemingway. He was a defensive tackle from South Carolina, and he played for the Vegas Raiders. So that that whole thing about having a pass rusher doesn't equate because none of them produced this year, and you got better production from Isaac Tesla this year than any of the defensive ends that you could have drafted last year. So that's number one. Number two,
It would have been funny too that we would probably, like, one of the first things we might have said on this segment if we didn't draft Tesla would be like, well, we got rid of Tim Patrick and like uh uh Raymond,
yep,
Khalif Raymond, like, yes, he's really solid for us, but like we still kind of need a wide receiver 3. So I guess, with Raymond, I'd say too, I think I touched on this briefly a couple of shows ago, but I think it makes sense to bring back Khalif Raymond. I could, maybe it makes more sense too to dive into it with some tight end thought, but I think that this team is probably going to have more tight ends on the roster than they had the last year or two, which means you might have like they might roll with like one less wide receiver than they've rolled with in the past. So if
yes,
that's going to be the case, like if I can just pencil in like Khalif Raymond's in his 30s, I don't know that he's someone that's going to be dying to like let me get every last dollar somewhere else. If I can get him under like a cheap deal, like 1 year deal, bring him back to be my punt returner and wide receiver 4, I don't have to like worry about, like, he knows the playbook and everything. And if I'm gonna have one less, if I'm having less wide receivers, I'd rather have a guy that I just trust. And he's not going to be playing a huge role anyway, but he probably can get me, 200-300 yards again. And yeah, he's just a trustworthy guy. So I still am. I'm, again, it's not someone you're going to die on the hill of, oh my gosh, they didn't bring back Khalif Raymond, but I think it could make sense. If they're going to roll with like maybe 5 wide receivers next year, I'm fine with him being, a cheap one and a reliable one. And as we've always talked about, even on the show too today, special teams being a factor. For as much as I kind of will hammer him this year for, I think, his awareness on catching certain punts was a little off and he should have let more roll into the end zone. The number one important trait for a punt returner is catching the ball. And I don't think Khalif Raymond's dropped one ball, honestly, at least not in the last couple of years. So that's something I can hang my hat on too, that I have someone that's always going to catch the ball back there as a punt returner.
Yeah, I think when you look at Khalif Raymond, in terms of his kick returning skills and what he was able to do on special teams, he had
Probably
he
ranked
had
pretty good too, because he did have the punt return touchdown against the Browns.
yeah, he had a punt return touchdown. He had 241 yards on 32 punts, so that's not bad. One touchdown. He was in terms of the kick return game, which wasn't his forte. He had
Yeah,
six
I'd probably take
returns.
him off that, honest, which I think they did. I don't think I think maybe he did at the start of the year, but at the end of the year, he wasn't really back there on kick return.
Yeah, your best kick returner last year was Tom Kennedy. So there you go. Jacob
He's
Sailors
probably Tom
was
Kennedy. I
decent too.
guess wide receiver room talk. Tom Kennedy's probably worth bringing back on the practice squad again. I mean,
Yeah, and
why not? He might be your honest. He might be worth being active on game days. Like if you want to put not much thought into wide receiver, and you just think we spent good capital on Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Isaac Tesla. We're going to bring Khalif Raymond back as our punt returner and wide receiver 4. And then we're going to, between Dominic Lovett and maybe you draft another one in the 5th or 6th round, or you bring in someone in free agency. And, honestly, you can probably do that and still have Tom Kennedy, because I think he can just be on he doesn't really necessarily need to count as one of your 5 necessarily. But Tom Kennedy is probably someone on the practice squad that you can't kill off that guy. He's just going to be on the team again next year.
Yeah, I looked at the wide receiver room, and like you said, that you had guys like for the receivers in terms of how good they were. You had when you look at receiving, you look at first rushing, receiving, first downs. Um, well, that's receiving, but I don't know why it's not giving the receiving touchdowns. I mean, receiving, but you look at Jameson Williams, he was a 1,000-yard receiver. Jahmyr Gibbs I think he was top 10 in rush yak over expected. I think he was top 10 in the league. If I'm not, yes, he was 8th in the league over Jameson Williams at 131. So
Wow.
again, you have a good receiver room. Isaac Tesla obviously helps you into the future. I always tell people when we go to the draft and you go pick these guys, you're realistically picking guys for future years. That's what you're trying to do. Once in a while you'll get a guy who turns out he's going to be this great rookie, but it doesn't happen normally. So Tesla's good. I think he has a fit in this roster. St. Brown is obviously going to stay. Obviously, JMO, St. Brown.
10 drops this year, whatever he had, and he still was pretty great.
Yeah,
I mean, you have to think he's going to want to not have a year where people are talking about drops with him. So he can cut that in half. He probably will have a first team All-Pro season next year.
Oh, first downs receiving. St. Brown had 71, Jameson Williams 49, Jahmyr Gibbs 28, Sam Laporta 23, Tesla 14, Raymond 14, Montgomery 14. So there you go. First downs. And look, St. Brown, I think he was dealing with an injury last year, to be honest. He didn't look right all year. And so for him to still have 1,400 yards.
He should have been a first team All-Pro, honestly. But he still had a great year. But I just think Jamar Chase would be the one guy. I just think this year, I don't know that Jamar Chase really. He was still amazing. His stats, Jamar Chase, were still incredible. But I would have had St. Brown ahead of him. But it is what it is. He's still second team All-Pro. I think.
Yeah, St. Brown. He was good, and he deserved it. But honestly, I just think he needs to rust up. I think he was so beaten, battered, and bruised. It didn't really matter. I think people hold the drops against him and everything, especially in those nationally televised games. He had a couple drops in the nationally televised games.
Kansas City one still hurts. I feel like if he would have had that 4th down catch against Kansas City, we would have probably won that game. So maybe maybe the drops deservedly kept him out of first team All-Pro this year, but still a great season.
An interesting statistic, obviously, when we were talking about the running back room, we were talking about the running back room and how the mismanaged snaps Dave Montgomery had 37 and Jahmyr Gibbs had 67. To show you a little bit of a piece of why the Lions they needed an offensive coordinator to call plays. This slipped by Dan Campbell by a lot. The success rate for Jahmyr Gibbs rushing the ball was 48.1. Okay, put that into perspective with Dave Montgomery with less carries, 48.1. So clearly, if they would have used Dave Montgomery the right way, they could have perhaps helped out a little bit. And I think that's when Dan Campbell took over, things got fallen by the wayside. So going back to the offense coordinator position, that's why I think it was so crucial that they got a guy who he could trust to run his offense. And if he thinks that Petzing can do that, fine. But that right there is exactly why I say the biggest thing about this offensive coordinator hire is that Dan Campbell's not calling the offense, because there was a lot of things missed on both sides of the ball that Dan Campbell wouldn't have missed last year that he missed this year. And it was a difference between 1 to 2 wins, in my opinion.
I mean, I completely agree in terms of the CEO part, and
there's no problem with being
Dan Campbell. Honestly.
There's no problem with being a CEO type guy. There's no problem with that.
Really, I think Dan Campbell's like, if he was, I think he could be a like I thought he was good as a play caller. I do think that, but which is a good luxury to have as a coach. But yeah, I'd rather have him be able to focus on the entire team as opposed to spending the entire week game planning.
I feel like if he was going to be the play caller, he's got to get a offense coordinator that's going to help him with substitutions, help him with play clock, certain things like that. And then obviously when you have a rookie defensive coordinator, that doesn't help either. Like it really doesn't help. Because you just think about if he had a defensive coordinator like Vic Fangio, okay, or if he had a guy like Jim Schwartz. Obviously, Calvin Shepard learned this year a lot, but we'll see what he can do in the next year. But we went through the quarterbacks, the running backs, the wide receivers. Obviously, running back was the main one that we were talking about that could be hit or miss as we look forward to the draft and free agency. So, I mean, I think wide receiver we're good. I think running back could be.
Don't say we're good. You'll piss everyone off.
Oh, that's a bad. That's
we're
a bad.
Good. We're good.
Bad. A bad. A bad
Too soon.
A bad use of language by me. My bad. I apologize for my misuse of "we're good." Quarterback, maybe you can get someone besides Kyle Allen. Okay, that'd be good. But besides that,
honestly, they'll probably have like a quarterback competition. I would assume. Like maybe they'll bring in an undrafted rookie and another veteran, and I mean they kind of seem to bet like they'll probably have some sort of like. I don't think Kyle Allen will be guaranteed the quarterback too, although I think they probably feel okay with that. But it still makes sense to probably, like I said, you probably have an undrafted rookie or you bring in another Kyle Allen type veteran, and maybe, this year that guy's better than Kyle Allen in the preseason and you go with him. So there could be maybe some quarterback too. I guess I didn't say that previously, but I could see something like that happen. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they're good with Kyle Allen because, as you said in the show, if Jared Goff gets hurt or, I don't know that you need to put in a crazy amount of thought to the backup quarterback situation. Although you always want a guy that can hold it down for a game or two.
I will throw something at you that I think could be a potential thing that we could look at the draft, and it's the backup quarterback position. There's a quarterback from North Dakota where Hank Fraley's son played. His name is Cole Payton, and he is off the charts. He is off the charts. He's really, really good. I think once he gets to the combine, he's going to move up at the draft boards, but he's really good. He was fantastic this year. I mean, he had the lowest turnover worthy play rate, big time play rate. He had the worst time to throw in FCS, and he still threw for, count it, he threw for 2,700 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. So if there is a guy that potentially the Detroit Lions have an inside track for, that's the guy. So
Wow.
we
Okay.
talked about the quarterback position, we talked about running back position, wide receiver, and we talked about the offensive coordinator. So we'll end it there on the podcast, and then it was good talking to you guys. Obviously, if you missed any part of this, you can go to the YouTube channel. We're gonna split up the clips so you can go in depth with the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and then we'll talk to you guys on the next Detroit Lions News podcast. We talk more Detroit Lions football. See you in the next one, and next Thursday is offensive lineman and tight end. So stay tuned for that.